see what's going on in your space. And by space, I guess today I mean all of the spaces, right? Both your physical space, especially if it's a new or a relatively new environment, but also just in our spaces, in the space that we inhabit energetically or emotionally. Kind of like taking the temperature for what we're starting with or where we're starting from today. Things might or not change later. But we have at least dedicated 1 minute to checking the temperature of our whole being. And then transition a little bit more specifically into the body. See if there is any physical pain anywhere. And if there is physical pain, is it something familiar or is it something new and odd? And whether it's familiar or not, does it come with a narrative? Does it come with a story? Things that I should do or shouldn't do, or reasons why it's happening, or judgment. And then notice one step more subtle than the pain. Is there any tightness or tension in the body? Is there anything that you're holding on to that perhaps you don't need to hold on to right now? If you find anything of that sort, you can play if you want with letting it go, which as always might or not be entirely possible. And then notice if there's any part of your body or any place in your body that feels good. And you can define good however you want. It could be that it feels strong and steady. It could be that it feels soft and open. It could be that it feels quiet. And from that space, part, or place, take your attention to your breath. If you want, you can even put your hands on your belly if you're laying belly up. If you're already belly down, great, because then you can use the pressure of the floor. Just feel the movement of your abdomen as it rises and falls. And see if you can use the breath as a river, transporting the sense of ease or goodness into other places in the body, maybe even into the space around you. Using your own resources to change and affect your own state of being. And then whenever you're ready, very, very gently, if you're not there yet, we're going to make our way onto our stomachs. And I'm going to take my glasses off. If it's okay enough, stack your hands and put your forehead on top of your hands so your head is not turning. Like if you have a pillow or something, you want to place your head on some kind of support, you can also do that. We're going to take a moment to just breathe and see if you can feel your body finding its sense of midline as if you're hanging from the back of your spine. You can find the back of your head, the back of your neck. The back of your spine is all the spinous processes that you can touch pretty easily, obviously touching the back all the way down to the sacrum. And kind of imagine the rib cage, the front of the spine, all of the organs that are inside your abdomen, all kind of hanging from the back of the spine. You might even feel your shoulder blades drooping a little bit, your shoulders dropping a little forward. That's fine, unless it's uncomfortable. And then from this place, we're going to find the top of the spine, which is, let's say, somewhere in the mouth. It's the back of the throat. That's how far up the spine goes, somewhere around there, right? So you can think about your mouth. You can think about the top of the spine if you have a good idea of where to locate it or how to sense it. Some people like the nose better. You can also go for the nose, somewhere in that area. Space between your ears. Find a landmark. It might change, but. And then from that place, take a tiny lift of the head. Just kind of comes off of your hands, almost as if you wanted to look forward. But I invite you to not lead with the eyes for now. You can even have your eyes closed and find the top of the spine somewhere in the throat. And by throat, I mean not the neck, but actually like kind of the back of the mouth, right? Almost as if you were a baby searching. Oh, my cat is kissing me. Hi, baby. You're a baby too. And then relax the head back down. We're going to try that again. And essentially, we're going to try to initiate movement. Some of the shapes will be familiar, some of them less familiar. It doesn't really matter. But we're initiating movement from the top of the spine and allowing the spine to follow. Keeping the sense of hanging from the back of your spine so that your shoulders and even your back muscles, even though obviously the more you lift, the more they'll engage. But they're not super tight. And then you can go up and down a few times with the head. You can try different heights. There is a sense of reaching forward a little bit rather than tilting the head forward, right? Or back, rather. And I like to think about the back of the throat because it kind of helps me to lift back a little bit as you find the reach. So the back of the neck stays a little bit more long. And then you can try to turn your head from side to side when you go up gently. How far can you turn the head before the spine, the shoulders follow? And you can let them follow, that's okay with me. If you feel you're getting a lot of tightness or tension rather than staying up a lot, you can go up and down. Maybe you lift, turn to one side and release, and then go to the other side. So there's a little bit less strain perhaps in the back. And after you've tried this sort of variations a few times, it doesn't matter how far you go. You can even look in towards your chest. It's the next movement that we're gonna add. You can try to look up. But if you locate the top of the spine really at the back of the mouth, see if you can avoid losing the head, meaning when the head really tilts all the way up and back, it's like we lose the connection between the mouth and the neck. There's a bone that we can name there, the sphenoid, that could be, it's like the connection, but we don't necessarily have to go there, but you might actually know it. And then from here, we're just gonna take the hands to the side, kind of like in a little cactusy shape. It doesn't exactly matter the position, figure it out. Forehead down on the ground, and then you try to do the same and see if you can let your arms pour into the ground until the hands might start to help lift. So the second connection, from the top of the spine, you go into the rest of the spine and then into the hands to help you move. You can change the placement of the hands if you want. Take them to a little cobra and see how they can help. Take them a little bit further forward or a little bit further back. See what happens if you turn your head. They might be pushing asymmetrically. Generally speaking, one of the first movement that we do is actually, which is not what I like to do, and I'm talking developmental movement here, is if I lift the head and turn towards the left, my right hand is gonna push a little bit more, because if I'm following the mouth and the face, I'm following towards the left hand. You can try that and see what happens there. Turning towards the right, adding a little push with the left hand, and turning towards the left, adding a little push with the right hand. Maybe lightening up the other hand. And then you can try the opposite too, which will create quite a different intention. If I look to the right and push with the right, it's gonna help me rotate a little bit more over my right shoulder, which is another option, right? Try that a few times. It doesn't have to be a big movement, it doesn't have to go super high, unless your back feels really nice, back bending and extending, then feel free to do that. And then at some point, we are gonna let that go and make our way back into a child's pose for a moment. In child's pose, you might wanna take a second, if you're old and cranky like me, to figure out how your knees and hips and ankles are doing. I usually need to take a little wiggle. My left knee has been acting up quite a bit lately, so I need a little extra help there, but. And then see how it feels to be here. Now your head is a little bit lower, the spine is flexed. We haven't quite worked here yet. We've been doing a lot of extension and rotation. And you can even try to find the top of your spine and see what happens if you curl yourself in a little bit more, as if you were trying to bring your forehead to your knees or bring your belly towards your navel. And then release it. And let the spine come back to a neutral or natural positioning on the ground. So whatever you're doing, we're finding the top of the spine. You can use this movement to even roll all the way up to sit, taking the mouth or the top of the spine in towards your chest and towards your navel so much that at some point you're gonna roll your spine up. And then to come back down, you kind of do the same thing. You take your top of the spine in and down and roll down one vertebra at a time, and then you might release. You can also go up the other way, obviously, which is what we in yoga call like a flat back, where you reach forward and up. And this is more similar to the movement that we're doing on the ground, right? The only thing that I'm being a little bit more specific about is that we're initiating from the top of the spine, right? And if you think about rolling up and rolling down as we usually do them, the rolling up from a child's pose often starts from the bottom of the spine, which is great. We're gonna do that next week probably. And the rolling down starts from the head, right? And if you swan dive up and you wanna go down with a flat spine, you initiate with your tail, with the bottom of the spine usually. Instead, for today, and you can try all of those things, but for today I'd like us to find as many ways as possible to initiate from the top of the spine, whatever that means, right? And see if we can figure out the distinction. So just be aware of that. Might be rolling up and down. At some point, we'll make our way over onto the hands and the knees from here. And if you need a moment to stretch your legs, you can take that. My cat's being really needy today. And then from hands and knees, take some cats and cows. You can take a moment to give yourself a break, give your brain a break, and just take some cats and cows and wiggles and movements side to side in any sort of way without being too specific about what's going on. You might also want to feel into your musculature, into the connective tissue, seeing how all of that soft tissue is feeling today. And if you need a little bit of a stretch, if you're sitting at home resting, maybe being sick, it's possible that things might feel a little tight, or maybe they feel nice and loose and soft. I actually tend to soften up when I don't do so much work. And then at some point in our cats and cows, we'll go back to our initiating from the top of the spine. So it's a segmental movement or a successional movement of the spine from head to tail. And it might be a little awkward, it might be a little unfamiliar. One direction usually feels better than the other. I think most people are using cats and cows to lead weight from the pelvis because it's a little bit more immediate. And you have the freedom that the pelvis doesn't often have. Usually we're standing on it or sitting on it. So it might be a little funny. And that's okay too. And then we can add bigger movement going from hands and knees into child's pose. From child's pose back into hands and knees. And if you can and want, even into a cobra. This is my favorite moment here. Curling back in from cobra, from the top of the spine all the way back into child's pose. And figure out ways to make it work for you. And just one more minute or so, and then we'll come back into more standard movement practice, whatever that means, or standard yoga stuff, whatever that means. Take a break as always whenever you want to, whenever you need a rest or whenever you need a moment to recuperate or to process. Breaks are great. And then whenever you're ready, we'll make our way into a downward facing dog from here. In downward facing dog, you can let your head drop down nice and heavy. Notice if there's any tightness or tension in the neck. Sometimes moving, initiating from the head, if we're not used to it, we're just gonna put a lot of stress on the neck, and it doesn't really need to be that much work. So notice if there is tension or tightness, it's possible. If you're even overdoing it, and take a moment to stretch the calves and the hamstrings, maybe pedal out the feet. Find a sense even here of hanging from the back of your spine, all the way from sacrum at the very top to the back of the head. So rather than squashing your armpits and your chest down towards the ground, there's a sense of them hanging from the back. And then take a moment to, leading with the head, come forward into a plank position. In plank position also, see if you can get a sense of hanging from the back of your spine. Might add a little bit of engagement through the legs, the back of the legs and the heels. And then lower your knees. Find an arch in the back bend for knees, chest and chin, leading with the head. Dropping the chest down between the hands so the weight's probably shifted forward a little bit. And then leading with the top of the spine, coming into a cobra. High or low, your choice for a little vinyasa. We'll make our way back to downward facing dog. And this time from downward facing dog, we'll take a walk. I like to walk forward really, really slow so I can get a little stretch through the calves and through the toes and through the feet. Feel free to adjust it as needed until we find our forward fold at the top of the mat with the feet maybe about hip width apart. You can release the hands, grab opposite elbows, or do whatever you want with the arms, but do shake your head no, no, no for a second and nod it yes, yes, yes. Same idea of letting the head and the neck and even the jaw, especially if you're thinking about ears or jaw or throat or mouth as the top of the spine, make sure that they're not holding tension. And then from here, we'll take our flat back. So leading from the top of the spine, I kind of take a little dive forward. You can take your hands to your shins if you want, or leave them down or take them to your hips. And there is a little bit of a sense of back bending even as I'm going to a flat shape, right? And then I can release everything back down. And the next time, we'll take a little roll up, curling. There's a sense of curling in from the top of the spine rather than rolling from the bottom, which I also find really interesting. I'm gonna roll all the way up to stand, stacking the spine without losing all of its curves. And even here, there's a sense of the back or the sides of the body, the ribs and the front of the spine and the organs kind of moving out and forward from the back of the spine, and then come from the top of the head to take a little roll down, softening the knees as much as you want. And then we'll take a full swan dive all the way up. So from here, coming through our flat back, you can take your arms out to the side if you want to dive all the way up, maybe even in a little extension if it feels good. And to take the hands down by the side, to take 3 sun salutations. Take a moment to stand. Notice how you're standing, where you're standing. How is your pain level, tightness, tension? What's the atmosphere, I guess, instead of the temperature? What's the atmosphere in the body, in the space around the body, in the ideas connected to the body? And I'll talk you through 3 sun salutations. You know, if you know, do what you need to do. You can change them. And just know that we'll regather at the end. And this is another good moment if you want to give your brain a break and do something else. Shaking things out is actually a great thing to do, so feel free to shake it out. If you want to keep your intention on the top of the spine, then feel free to do that and kind of apply it in any way that feels inspiring to you. So we'll take a breath in to lift the arms up. And exhale to fold forward, fingertips coming to the floor. Inhale for a flat back. And exhale to step back into a vinyasa of your choice. Could be knees, chest, chin like before, or it could be chaturanga or a cat-cow, anything you like. We'll meet in downward facing dog for maybe about 3 breaths, just to pause. If you want to wiggle, you can wiggle. If you want to do a handstand, you can. If you want to take child's pose, whatever it is here. And then we'll bend the knees, look between your hands and take either a hop or a walk. Bring your feet towards the hands for a flat back as you breathe in. And forward fold as you breathe out. And then reverse the swan dive, come all the way up. And exhale, arms by your sides. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, fold forward, fingers to the floor. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, hop or walk, take your vinyasa of choice. About 3 breaths in any variation that's happening here. And then bend the knees between your hands, take a hop or a walk. Feet towards the hands. Inhale for a flat back. Exhale to fold. And inhale to reverse it. Come all the way up to stand. And exhale, arms by your sides. Last one if you're with me. Inhale, arms up, or just so you know, time-wise. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, step or hop. Roll through your vinyasa of choice. To downward facing dog, child's pose, handstands, whatever else might be happening here. And after about 3 breaths, bend the knees between the hands, hop or walk. Inhale for a half lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to reverse. Come all the way up. Arms by your sides. Take a moment to pause in mountain pose. And take the temperature of your state. Or measure the atmosphere of your body again. And we'll take a chair pose. You can have your feet together or hip width apart, your choice. Just bend the knees. The arms can go up if your shoulders are happy with that, or they can go forward, right? And we're going to try to find a neutral-ish spine as much as possible to start. And then from there, perhaps extend the top of the spine a little bit. And just see what happens. Take a deep breath in. And as we breathe out, we're going to dive forward with the top of the spine, finding a little curve. Reach the hands back behind you and interlace the fingers. Roll the shoulders back, a little flat back to allow the shoulder blades to hug together a little bit more. And then fold forward. If your shoulders hate this variation, feel free to let them go. And they're okay enough. The knuckles will go up towards the seating, elbows are trying to lengthen. Palms might stay together. I'm actually letting them go because it feels better for my shoulders today. And then release the hands. Bend the knees from the top of the spine and resume your chair. A little bit of an upward dive. And then exhale to fold forward. Step back to your vinyasa or to our downward facing dog directly, depending how many push-ups you want to do today. From downward facing dog, we'll take an inhale to lift the right leg up and back behind you. And you can take a moment to open and close the hips, to circle that right leg around if you want to. Feel the movement or lack thereof in your hip socket. It's actually a really simple way to warm up the hip muscles. These kind of circles in odd organization, orientation to gravity. And then we'll come to a squared-ish hips to take a breath in, and on a breath out, look towards your knee as you take your knee towards your nose. And see if you can increase the vicinity between the knee and the nose by curling the spine, and then inhale to reach your right foot up. It's a little pendulum. Exhale, knee to nose or to mouth. Last time, inhale, reach it up. And exhale, knee to nose. And this time, step the foot between the hands. I'm going to take the back knee down on the floor. You can keep your toes tucked or untucked, your choice. And start off with a little bit of a flexion of the spine. So as your head comes in towards your belly or towards your chest, your tail doesn't move back, right? You can even walk your hands up onto your thigh. And I'm trying to take my head in without hinging it forward at the hip, right? Because that's going to cancel all of that flexion that I'm creating from the top. And there's a softening of the sternum that might need to happen so that I'm not crunching just in the neck. And then from here, release the head and the top of the spine up, release the arms up if you want. Anjaneyasana, any variation you like. And then head curls in. Hands can come back down to the floor. This time I'm gonna straighten the front leg any amount with a curved spine to start. And then perhaps I just lengthen the spine over the legs. So I have these two forward fold variations. One with the spine flex, which is gonna create actually more stretching sensation in the back muscle. And one with the spine kind of neutralish in the sense of lengthening of the spine that's going to create more stretching sensation in the leg. And you can figure out which one you like better. And then come forward onto your lunge again. Tuck the back toes if you have untucked them. Step back into downward facing dog. Take a vinyasa if you'd like or not. And then we'll go to the second leg. I'm gonna inhale to lift the left leg up and take a few moments here. You can move the hips around, you can wiggle, you can circle the legs. Just see how things are feeling. In regular life, we don't really get to have our legs up in the air much, unless, you know, this is your job. And even so. So see if you can explore what it feels like to do that. Makes your legs, your muscles a lot smarter. And then I'll take an inhale to lengthen and maybe square off the hips a little bit. And then knee to nose and nose to knee for your pendulum. You come forward, starting perhaps from the top of the spine, curling in, and then inhale, swing it back up, lengthen the spine. Exhale, curl the spine in. Soften the sternum, flex the spine, knee to nose. Last one. Inhale, lengthen the spine, lengthen the leg up. And exhale, head in, knee to nose. And this time we step the foot between the hands, take the back knee down, knees or toes tucked or untucked, your choice. And then lean the hips forward, so you find a nice deep lunge, and then add this curling of the top of the spine that takes your thoracics and your lumbars all into flexion without pushing your tail back. Right? If you put your hand on your back, you'll feel it. If your tail moves forward, you're flexing at the lumbar. If your tail moves back, you'll be extending again. Right? And if you want, you take your hands up onto your knee or thigh and try a little bit more of this. Really important to me is that softening of the sternum here, so that you're not smashing your chin towards your chest or into your chest, but you're flexing the spine. And then lengthen everything back up. You can lift your arms up, take any variation of Anjaneyasana, of a crescent lunge, whatever you like to take here. And then curl in from the top to take the hands down to help you with balance, and straighten the front leg, and then try it out. See what it feels like to flex the spine, so with the same movement that you were just doing, or to extend the spine. The sensation should shift where the muscles that are getting lengthened are gonna be different groups, different places. I know in yoga there's like a lot of emphasis on not curving the spine when you take a forward fold. I think that's silly. And I think that we should be able to do both, because they do different things. So whenever you've had enough of this and you might have figured out which one you like better, then come forward onto your lunge again and step back into downward facing dog. Take a vinyasa if you'd like, or skip it if you've had enough of that for now. And then from here we'll take a hop or a walk to bring the feet forward towards the hands in a forward fold. And from here, we'll take a chair pose. I would say have your feet hip width apart if you haven't gotten there for now. Because we're gonna balance from there. So you're gonna come into your chair pose. And then this time, I'm gonna think about my knee to nose pendulum that I was just doing. You can do whatever you want with your arms. Then I'm gonna curl my head in and lift my right knee because that's what's happening, and take it towards the nose. And then come through a warrior 3 as I lengthen the leg away. It's the same movement that you were doing in pendulum. If you want to do it one more time, curl everything in, knee to nose, and then lengthen everything back up and out through a warrior 3. And then soften the standing leg to step into a low lunge. You can place your hands on the floor for a moment. Ground the back heel for a warrior 1 position. And this time we're gonna come up from the head curling in. So we find that same transition that we did for Anjaneyasana before coming up into maybe a little back bend, right? Any variation of warrior 1 that you like. And then we'll curl the head in, reach the hands back, interlace the fingers, roll the shoulders back for a moment to lengthen the spine. That should allow you to get your shoulder blades a little closer together. And then see if you can keep them there as you relax your head down for devotional warrior, finding a little bit of a curling of the spine. So for this too, rather than letting the butt swing up and back, can the tail still come down and forward a little bit? And again, if your shoulders hate this, just let your arms go. Take one more breath. And then as you exhale, release the arms. Come all the way back up into warrior 1, straighten the front leg, and step your back foot forward a little bit for pyramid or your front foot back. You can take your hands to your hips, you don't have to worry about them. It's really, really slow. Then we're gonna move it a little faster and add a variation. And from here, we'll come with the head. Curling the head in, softening the sternum away from the chin. Coming through a really flexed spine forward fold. Your hands might go on the floor and they might go on your shin or they might go on blocks. And then if you want to, lengthen or not. Right? See what you like to do. And the spine in a deep forward fold is usually doing a little bit of both. Even if you're trying to extend, chances are it's the top of your spine is extending and the bottom is flexing, right? As that just bones and how the bodies are made. But we can change the sensation and the intention. Shapes are, I think, quite secondary to intention and sensation. So and then we'll soften the front knee to step a right foot forward. Feet about hip width apart. It's gonna make that initial transition a little bit easier. Hang over your legs. And then we'll come into chair pose. Bending the knees, lifting the arms. From here, shift the weight onto the right foot and find that curling in of the spine. I'm reaching the arms down because I feel like it makes it easier, but you can do whatever you want. And then swim through a warrior 3, finding that extension between foot and top of the spine, same as we did in pendulum, or 3-legged dog this would be. And then curl yourself in again, maybe. And then lengthen back out. And then curl in a little bit, just enough that you can bend your standing leg, step back into a lunge. Find your footing so you can place your back foot nicely at 45 degrees or so. I'm widening my stance a little. And then from the top of the spine, curl your way in and then release up into warrior 1. Any variation of warrior 1 you like. If you need to adjust things. This is not the way that we need to do it all the time, But for me, I find sometimes it helps me to find a little bit more of a vertical pelvis. If you have a tendency to have a lot of a sway back from the tail or a lot of lumbar curve, this sense of consolidating the front of the spine a little bit can be helpful. And then you release from there, so there's a little bit more control. And curl in from the head, consolidating the front, reaching the hands back to interlace the fingers, roll the shoulders back, let the shoulder blades come a little bit closer together. And then devotional warrior, release all the way in and down with the head. And notice if you are kind of lengthening your weight forward and all your weight goes on the front leg, there's a lot of compression on the front hip. That's also the other thing where it can help. And see if you can keep your tail curled in a little bit, which will keep more weight on the back foot and a little bit less pressure on the front hip. It also generally requires a little bit more work. I don't like to do it, but it is a lot better for my hip, I noticed. So can give yourself what you need or what you want. It's not always the same. And then from here, we'll come back up, releasing the hands, rolling up. Step the back foot forward or the front foot back a little bit for pyramid, whatever position and distance allows you to have both heels on the floor. I'm taking my hands to my hips so they're out of the way. And then curl in, letting the sternum soften as I find a very, very curved spine, forward bend. And then maybe try to extend. And maybe go back and forth between the two. Maybe not. Your choice. And then eventually we'll step forward with the left foot into a forward fold. Soften the knees or straighten the knees, your choice. We'll take a moment to roll up and come into mountain pose. It's a lot of forward folds. We're going to take back bends to it at the end just to get the back line of the body a little bit back into center. One more standing sequence, and it's just gonna move a little bit faster and potentially add a handstand, maybe one more balance. We'll see where it takes us, right? You can stay with the simpler version that we just did if you want, or add fancy stuff if you're one of those people. We're gonna take an inhale for a chair pose. And then curl the spine and take the knee in towards the nose. We'll step back through a warrior three. You're welcome to pause in warrior three. You can come in and out a few times if you want or not. Coming to a low lunge and into a warrior one. Right? From warrior one, you're welcome to stay here. Can curl your head in, reach the hands back, come into warrior three, into a, devotional warrior. Take it all the way back up. Straighten the front leg, step the back foot forward. You can take it to pyramid, or you can take it to standing splits. Your choice. So if you take it to standing split, you're going to shift your weight onto the left foot. Hands will come to the floor. Right leg is going to fly up. And you can curl your head in, kind of looking in towards the right foot up at the top. Or you can lengthen your spine down. And if you want to test your balance here too, you can lift your arms by your sides or take your hands to your left ankle, whatever you want to do. I find it easier to lengthen the spine and kind of look in front of my left foot if I'm balancing. And then you take the hands back down to the floor, right? They're gonna be a little bit in front of your left foot. If you want, without taking too much of a back bend, so you're gonna look for a neutral spine. If you want here, you take a couple of hops, letting the right foot go up towards the seating and the left foot stay in your L-shape handstand sort of position. And then eventually we'll step the right foot forward again, right? So the idea being, and then we'll come up to stand to do the second side. But if you're trying to take your handstand or your standing split and balancing or warrior three, it's the same thing all around, right? Finding the integrity and the connection from the top of the spine to the bottom of the spine and knowing when we're taking a back bend. And I do find it helpful to feel the back of the spine, kind of like it's moving back, including the neck. Sometimes when you take handstands, we end up, tossing the head back a lot. So be aware of that. I'm gonna take the second side and then take it back down to the floor. I'm moving pretty fast, you know the drill at this point. Bend the knees, come into a chair pose. Take the left knee in towards the nose or the other knee. And then reach back through your warrior three. Can stay here a little bit. You can go in and out one more time if you want. And then we'll curl in to come through a low lunge, just enough that we can look at the back foot, right? And then curl up to warrior one. We'll take a couple of breaths here. Maybe you take a different variation. Maybe not. Curl the head into devotional warrior. We'll just take a breath or two here. Shoulder blades roll together. Head goes back down. Weight stays on both feet. And then from here, release the hands down, roll your way back up. Step the feet closer for either pyramid or standing split. Curling in. If I come into standing split, the hands are gonna come down to the floor, and I'm gonna keep the head curled in. So as I shift my weight onto the left foot, I can see, onto the right foot, I can see the left foot going up. And then maybe lengthen, maybe test the balance, maybe not. Your choice. And if you want, add your handstand practice. Whatever it looks like. I'm imagining a warrior three here, which is really hard for me. And then we'll step forward. Shake off the legs for a moment. Shake off the head, shake off the shoulders. We'll step back into a downward facing dog for a moment. Take a vinyasa if you want. Just to kind of re-establish your spinal extension and hip extension. And then we'll come into child's pose. Yeah, take a moment in child's pose to just rest. Doing a time check. Good. And from here, whatever back bend works, I'm gonna go for camel because it can do that same leading from the head. If you would like to stay on your belly and take bow or locust, that's great. If you wanna flip over and take bridge or wheel, that's great. Know that if you do bridge or wheel, top of the spine is gonna lose a little bit of its initiation power, which doesn't make it wrong or bad. So if you're doing camel, we're gonna come into a kneel standing position and tucking the toes under maybe to start. Hands can come to the hips if you want. And it's the same sense that we did when we were on the ground,
of lengthening the head forward and maybe a little bit back. And then just reach with the hands. Right? See what it feels like. If you drop your head, is that thing that we were talking about at the very beginning, when it's almost like your head is disconnected from your spine a little bit. So if you want, you can keep the connection. Some people even like to look forward, which is a little fatiguing for the front of the neck, but you can feel less pressure into the lower back. So see what you like. And then to come back, we're going to come from the curling of the head, softening of the sternum, deepening of the whole spine. We'll take it one more time. If you want to untuck the toes, if you want to take a different variation, take a different variation. Or it starts the same way. And we're moving into the back space. And to come back, we'll come from the head. And the curling forward. Wherever we are, we'll make our way back up into downward facing dog whenever you're done with your back bend. Well, we'll take in pigeon, so depending what position you're in. I'm coming to downward dog because it helps to release the spine too, but depends where you are. And then we'll step one knee forward, either knee, doesn't really matter. If you want more back bend, this is another great place to explore back bend and going into the back space from the top of the spine. If you're done with the back bends and your hamstrings and glutes have worked enough, you can take a forward fold. We'll take about 5 breaths here, not very long because of time. And then we'll make our way to the second side. So however you want to transition from side 1 to side 2, might depend again on where you came from. You might try to do the same thing on the second side. If you took variations, back bends or things, I want to do the same thing on the second side as well. And then we roll our way back up. And now to find our way to rest from here, if you are a symmetry person, you might want to come out the same way as you came in. I'm going to skip that because I don't want to do another downward dog. And you can come to rest on any surface of your body. We didn't do any twisting specifically, so if you want to take a moment to drop your knees from side to side, or hug your knees to your chest, or take a supine spinal twist, might be a good moment to do that. And then eventually
or place to rest. Any surface of your body, any position, any organization, anything that makes you feel happy and comfortable or comforted. For a few moments, a few minutes. You might check in again. What's your pain level, if there is any pain? Is it the same as before? And you might notice if it's more or less, if there was pain earlier, but also maybe it's just changed. Is there any tightness or tension in the body? Anything that you're holding on to that you don't need to hold on to right now? And what is the atmosphere in and around your body now? And then let all of that checking in go as well if you haven't yet. And as your body settles and softens into the ground, let your attention also soften. And sometimes it softens and settles, sometimes it softens and kind of journeys away. That's okay. See if you can not be attached to that either. It's your brain's job to think. But you pay attention to whatever you want to pay attention to. And then gently, gradually take a moment to deepen your breath. Take a moment to stretch and wiggle and yawn if you feel like doing that. Eventually, we'll make our way up to sit. I just realized that it's another interesting place to practice that rolling in of the head is from the side. Instead of just pushing with the hands and going with the head up, there's a way that the head going in can actually help bring the torso up. But take it or leave it. Eventually, from a comfortable seat, we might place the hands on the sternum, same place that we were working on softening a moment ago, and just feel the movement of the breath in the sternum, under the hands, in the belly, down below. Any other position is fine too. And also how the spine can reach tall without the sternum necessarily having to lift or contract. And maybe we do take a little bow in gratitude to all the teachers and students who've gone before, and the greatest teacher of all, which is that within ourselves.